The movie begins with the narrator explaining a television montage about America in the 1970s, a time of unrest and mistrust, a time of fear and violence, and news stories about how we're entering a satanic age, and anyone who can't see that is blind. The narrator says the television documents the chaos and brings horror right into our living rooms, and then you see footage of an occult leader concluding a ritual by saying, "So it is done." He says the TV also offers comfort and goes on to explain that in April of 1971, the first episode of a new late-night talk show, Night Owls, airs with a popular radio announcer, Jack Elroy. The announcer goes on to say, with its entertaining mix of interviews, music, and sketch comedy, Night Owls captures the hearts of midnight America. And in 1972, Jack signs a 5-year deal with the network. Jack now has an Emmy nomination and his audience is growing, and he has his eyes set on beating out Johnny Carson for the top spot of late night. By his side is his wife Madeline, and they are considered to be the happiest couple in Hollywood. She is not his only source of support. Jack is also associated with a place called The Grove, a men's-only club in the Redwood Forest of California. This club is portrayed as a club for the rich and powerful and elite, such as heads of state, politicians, and entertainers, but there's always been speculation that this club was a secret society for satanic ritual. After 4 years of doing the show, he still fails to beat Johnny Carson in ratings. And in 1976, his wife, who is a non-smoker, is diagnosed with terminal lung cancer. His wife makes an appearance on the show, and it's the highest-rated episode on Night Owl history. 2 weeks later, his wife passes, and Jack disappears. To the surprise of many, Jack reemerges 2 months later to host his Night Owl show again. Jack and his crew try all kinds of gimmicks to reduce the gap in ratings of him and Johnny Carson, but nothing works. In 1977, Halloween night, Jack desperately plans an episode that he hopes will change everything. The narrator lastly says what you are about to see is the recently discovered master tape of what happened on air that night, as well as previously unreleased behind-the-scenes footage, a live TV event that shocked the nation. After his opening Halloween monologue, his first guest is Christou, a medium who claims to be able to speak with spirits in the underworld. Christoph begins and says he hears the name Peterson. A man in the back stands up and starts to make fun of him. Christoph apologizes and says sometimes the studio lights and cameras send him mixed signals, and he tries again. This time he says the name that he hears, and it connects with these two ladies, a mother and daughter. And everything matches their deceased loved one, down to his teddy bear. His performance is concluded and he rejoins Jack back on stage. Just then something comes over him. When he feels a strong spirit, he screams and says he hears the name Millie, and he sees an unmarried man with a wedding ring, and the spirit needs to talk to you. He screams, "Who are you?" and the lights begin to flicker. Christoph regains consciousness and says she's gone, referring to the spirit. Jack goes to commercial. During the commercial break, Christou is still sick and bleeding from the nose, and Gus is still concerned about one of the later guests because he saw restraints and knives and that the rest of the crew is a little spooked. Jack's producer Leo wants to talk to Jack alone. He tells him that the station's head of marketing is sitting front row and they want to meet him. As they prepare to return to the live broadcast, Christou is still visibly shaken. Jack attempts to make him relax and tries to warn him about the next guest and that he should ignore him. Jack's next guest is a former magician who is now one of the leading voices of the skeptics movement. Carmichael does a few magic tricks, and then Jack tells him he saw his group hypnosis routine in Vegas and it boggled his mind. Jack tells the audience that Carmichael is now the head of an organization that scientifically debunks paranormal activity. Carmichael believes it's their mission to test these paranormal claims to be able to tell what is trickery and what is not. He also carries a check around with him for $100,000 for anyone that can prove the paranormal activity. But until then, he's going to keep exposing everyone. Christou tells Carmichael that he doesn't need his money, and then he starts coughing violently. Christou has a glass of water and then says he's fine. Jack asks Carmichael, since he's a skeptic, to explain Christou's reading. Carmichael tells Christou he missed a few times before he was able to guess the right name, and that even a broken clock is right twice a day. But Jack says we all saw Christou connect that lady with her deceased son. But Carmichael calls him a liar, a cheat, and a fake. So Christou throws a glass of water in his face and gets up to leave. But Jack calls Christou back because he believes that his last reading was really meant for him. He tells him the name he called before he got sick was Minnie, and that was a private nickname he used for his deceased wife. And the unmarried man wearing a wedding ring was him also. Carmichael is still skeptical. Christou starts to get sick again. And just as Carmichael is offering $500,000 for Christou to conjure up Jack's dead wife, Christou falls to the floor and projectile vomits all over Carmichael. And they cut to a commercial again. During the commercial, they're trying to help Christou, but he's screaming that something is not right. Gus tries to keep the audience calm while Carmichael has someone go and get him another jacket. During the break, Carmichael accuses Jack of being in on the hoax with Christou and tells him he's heard the rumors and wants to go to the Grove with him and learn the secrets of the club. His producer tells him that an ambulance is coming for Christou, and all of this is good for ratings. A stagehand mistakenly brings out the props for the next guest, which makes Jack nervous. He then sees his friend Dr. June Mitchell but can't get to her before the door closes. We come back from commercial and Jack is assuring the audience that Christou is receiving medical attention backstage. Jack is ready to call his next guest when he's distracted by the sound of Christou's ambulance. He introduces his next guest by showing the book she wrote, Conversations with the Devil. He wants to show a clip produced by Dr. June Mitchell about the young subject of the book, and warns the audience it might be disturbing. The clip starts with the Church of Abraxas and their founder, Xander Diabo. He explains that there is no good or evil, just what you want and how you get it. He tells the interviewer to make no mistake that the master demands sacrifice. The cult's activities come to the attention of the FBI, who suspect him of kidnapping and breeding young ones for human sacrifice. Diabo says whoever witnesses these rituals will fall under the spell of Abraxas. And when the ritual is over, he says, and so it is done. When federal agents storm the compound, Diabo, the leader, commands his followers to douse themselves with gasoline and set themselves on fire. But one person survived, a young one named Lily. She was taken to a facility, but she couldn't recall the events that occurred, and her behavior was so strange that they contacted Dr. June Mitchell. They make a connection and she's able to work with Lily. She then plays a recording of Lily's demonic possession. The clip ends and we're back with Jack introducing June and the little girl from the tape, Lily. Gus has a look of concern when he sees her. After the guests are seated, Jack tells Lily he's happy she can join us, and Lily tells Jack she's happy that he can join us too. Jack makes a lighthearted joke asking Lily if she's ever seen the show before. Lily says no, and follows with, "But I know who you are, Mr. Delroy." She tells him that she knows that he's the guy whose wife died of cancer, and that she knows what it's like to lose someone close. He'll get over it. She also tells Jack he needn't worry about his television show. She thinks he's going to be very famous soon. Then Jack goes to commercial. During the commercial break, Jack motions to the makeup artist and says it's time to make ourselves look pretty again. Then Lily's voice changes and she says, "Don't I already look pretty, Jack?" Dr. June tells Jack she needs to speak with him alone. She tells Jack that this is not a good idea because Lily's becoming more and more unpredictable. She continues warning Jack about this not being a good idea, but Jack doesn't want to hear it. He's trying to assure her that she can do this, and you can tell by their interaction that they're more than friends. The producer, worried about the ratings, is also worried that she's not going to go through with the show. He also informs Jack that Christou died in the ambulance. Meanwhile, Carmichael the skeptic is asking the women if they had to fill out a questionnaire before they came in, wanting to know if their answers could have helped Christou with his reading. We come back from commercial and Dr. June is explaining what a parapsychologist does, but Carmichael keeps trying to debunk everything she says. Dr. June goes on to say for the past few years, she's been using age regression therapy for a deeper understanding of satanic rituals to piece together the details of Lily's life and to better understand the demon that lurks within her. June begins to talk about the pieces that they recovered from the Diabo house, including this sacrificial dagger that Carmichael picks up and acts as though a demon has possessed him, and he tells everyone to turn off their TV sets before Abraxas claims their souls. Jack tells Carmichael to stop playing around. Jack asks Lily the name of this demon that's inside of her, and she says his name is Mr. Wriggles. Lily says we all have demons inside of us, but we can't always control them. Suddenly, loud noises overtake the studio, causing electric shocks and glasses to break on the table. Carmichael gets up and unplugs the PA system. The noise stops and he says it was feedback going through the speakers. But Lily says that was Mr. Wriggles and asks Carmichael why is he so condescending. Jack, thinking about his ratings, asks Lily if they can invite Mr. Wriggles onto the show now. Dr. June objects and says it has to be done in a controlled environment. Lily begs June to do it. The doctor agrees reluctantly, only on one condition. She has to have full control of his staff and of the audience. Jack tells his audience they're about to witness a television first where they try to talk to the devil. As they go to commercial, Gus is concerned, and Lily is ecstatic. When the makeup artist asks, "I hope you know what you're doing," Lily says, "I know what we're doing, don't we, June?" Gus tells Jack he's meddling in things he doesn't understand, but Jack says, "I'm trying to save our show." Russ tells Jack that he knows that Christou is dead, and that the crew is scared and thinking about leaving. He believes as Mr. Wiggles is behind all this and asks Jack to stop before something terrible happens. We come back from commercial and Jack tells the audience that the demonstration is about to begin. Lily preps the audience by telling them, whatever you see or hear, please remain calm. She asks Lily to close her eyes and let herself sleep, and then she asks to speak with Mr. Wiggles. Lily's body contorts, and Mr. Wiggles answers and says, "You know who I am, Doctor." The demon is confused and wants to know why he's here, and June says, "We're here to find your purpose." The demon says, "My purpose? He's here, isn't he?" Then turns towards Jack and says, "Nice to see you again." Jack says, "I don't know you," but the demon says, "We go way back. We met amongst the tall trees," referring to his club at the Grove. He tells June, "Be careful. Remember what happened to his last woman. She died an ugly death, and they finished with her a long time ago, and now Jack can screw whoever he wants, like you, Dr. June." The constant mocking from Dr. Wiggles makes June upset, and she slaps Lily. Then Lily's face shapeshifts, and the doctor starts to perform an incantation to exorcise the demon. The deity's attention returns to Jack, and she asks, "How could you let it happen?" Lily starts to levitate in the chair. When the chair comes back down, Lily awakens. Jack, who is visibly shaken, wants to go to commercial, but Carmichael says he knows how this trick is done. Jack tells him, "You'll get your chance to explain," and they go to commercial. Jack is excited about what this will do for the ratings and wants to get him back on as soon as possible. But June wants to know, what does she mean by "she met you under the tall trees"? Carmichael tells Gus it's all smoke and mirrors, but Gus tells him Crystal died on the way to the hospital. The producer said the Communications Commission and the head of the network called an emergency meeting, said this is the biggest show since the moon landing. Lily asks Jack, "What are we going to do next?" And Jack says it's time to say goodnight. We come back from commercial and Jack apologizes to his audience if they were offended by anything that they saw. He asks Lily if she remembers what happened. She says it's like she's in a dream state where she's awake and asleep at the same time. Carmichael jumps in and says the doctor performed group hypnosis and wants to perform his own demonstration. He gets Gus to be his volunteer, and once they set up, Carmichael wants everyone in the audience and at home to stare at his watch. Once he feels Gus is hypnotized, he asks him about his fear of worms. Gus wants to know how he knows about that, and Carmichael says, "Do you realize you're in a deep trance?" Gus says no, but then says it's getting really hot and his body is itchy. Then he pulls a worm from his neck. The audience is in shock, and now Gus feels worms inside of him and wants to get them out. Jack and Dr. June are in shock while Lily is laughing. Carmichael snaps his fingers to awaken him from the trance, but it doesn't work right away, so he does a different incantation and says, "Dreamer, awake." Gus wakes up and the worms are gone, and Jack wants to know what happened because he saw them too. Carmichael says he did the same thing that June did, but with more imagination. Jack doesn't believe it because he knows what he saw. He wants them to play the tape back. They play back the tape and it's totally different from what everyone saw. That's because everyone was hypnotized, and you can see Carmichael giving Gus all of the instructions to make him feel like there's worms all over his body. They stop the tape and Gus says he's never been more embarrassed in his life. Dr. June denies doing group hypnosis. Then Lily says, "If Mr. Haig thinks we're playing a trick on everyone, why don't we play back that part also?" But Dr. June has had enough, and she's taking Lily with her. Lily pleads with her to stay so everyone can know the truth. They play back the tape and everything is exactly as it was when it was live. Then Jack notices something and he wants them to rewind the tape. He has his producer going frame by frame, and then he sees his wife. Jack is in shock while Carmichael tries to explain it away and accuses Jack of concocting the whole thing. Lily goes back into a trance state and electricity starts to overwhelm her body. The lights go out, and when they come back, Lily is fully possessed. She's spouting electricity from everywhere. Then her skull splits open. The audience panics and runs. Gus yells, "The power of Christ compels you," and she snaps his neck. June tries the same thing, but she gets choked with her necklace. She sends Jack flying across the stage, and Carmichael tries to survive by pledging his allegiance to Satan. The demon then finishes June. In a last effort to survive, Carmichael pulls out the $500,000 check. The demon says abracadabra, makes the check disappear, and burns him up from the inside out. His producer tries to get him out, but he comes back to take one last look at the demon. The broadcast stops, and then we're transported into Jack's head into a dream version of the show. Jack is confused, and he's asking, "How did I get here?" The same thing Lily asked when she was in a trance. Jack, stuck in a nightmare of his old skits, comes to the one where his wife made an appearance on the show. Jack is terrified and tells her, "You're dead." Then the broadcast appears to stop. Then we're transported back into Jack's mind, and Jack is telling the audience to turn off the TV sets and stop watching this. We're then transported back to when Jack signed his 5-year contract, and someone asks him, "What did you have to sacrifice for this?" And the head of the network says, "Oh, Jack's greatest sacrifice has yet to come." Jack is given a cup, and then he's taken to a ritual of sacrifice. Jack is placed on his knees and made to drink the contents of the cup. A door opens and we see Jack's wife. Now we realize that Jack met Mr. Wiggles when he performed this ritual at the Grove, and his wife tells him, "You finally made it, but you had to pay a price. Exit me, stage left," meaning he had to sacrifice her for fame. Jack says he never thought they would do this. She tells them his soul belongs to them, and still does. She's in so much pain from the cancer, she asks Jack to do one last thing for her, put her out of her misery. He uses the sacrificial dagger to end her life. He's then transported back to reality and realizes that it's Lily he stabbed. As Jack looks around the studio and sees all these dead bodies, he's hoping he's been hypnotized, and he starts saying what Carmichael said to Gus to wake him up. "Dreamer, here awake." As we hear police sirens in the background. The last shot is of a blank screen that says, "So it is done," which means we've all witnessed this ritual. My thoughts? Great acting, very good writing, one of the best horror movies of 2024.